Welcome back to the Nadlan Forum Podcast Daily. It's Lior here. Somehow still loving New York after all these years, and firmly on the hunt for the next great mortgage topic. So today, we're tackling something that could really shake up the market. The Federal Housing Finance Agency's new proposed housing goals for 2026 to 2028. And, well, a lot of people are concerned. Consumer and civil rights groups think the Consumer Federation of America and like 27 other advocacy groups are all over this, warning that these changes could basically make home ownership even harder to reach for, well, most low and moderate income buyers. The crux of the proposal? The FHFA is looking to reduce the goals for low-income and very low-income home purchases that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are supposed to hit. Now, if these targets are actually lowered, the estimate is that up to 177,000 families, yeah, that's not a typo, it's a lot of people, might lose out on those GSE-backed mortgages. Historically, these goals exist to make sure government-sponsored enterprises help people who need it most, those who are kind of squeezed out by traditional lenders. Now you might be asking, what exactly are GSE housing goals for? In plain English, they're like the scorecard for Fannie and Freddie, measuring how well they're doing at supporting affordable home ownership, especially for folks who otherwise wouldn't have access to these programs. If you lower the bar, fewer people make the cut. And honestly, when you look at how many are already locked out, remember what we talked about before on golden handcuffs and affordability cliffs. It really feels like the timing couldn't be worse. The other part of this is, why does even slightly consolidating or dropping these targets matter? Well, it matters a ton. Over decades, these goals have been a tool for closing gaps. That's not just my opinion, that's a direct through line from previous policies. If you mess with the underlying benchmarks, you risk reversing a lot of the equity gains we've actually made, tiny as they sometimes feel. So, let's flow right into the bigger challenge, how these changes shake out for underserved communities. One big red flag that advocates are waving is the FHFA's plan to merge two long-standing sub-goals, one for low-income census tracts and one just for minority census tracts. They want to consolidate these into one bigger target. And look, I get the appeal of simplicity, but sometimes lumping things together just waters them down. The concern, and I think it's fair, is that this consolidation means less specific focus on the areas that need it most. If you've got one big bucket, it's easy to overlook the harder to serve neighborhoods. Especially historically, Black, Latino, or immigrant communities, it's like when you lose nuance, you lose accountability, right? Groups are saying this could set back progress on home ownership for communities of color, first-time buyers, and working-class families. Honestly, it's pretty disheartening if you've seen the numbers on racial disparities in home ownership. I'll give you a quick real story from my own experience when I first moved to New York in 2010. By 2012, I was helping immigrant families try to break into home ownership. Lots of folks who, honestly, didn't even know what a prime mortgage rate was, let alone how to qualify for one. Back then, those robust GSE goals acted like sort of a lifeline. When the rules are strong, traditional banks can't just ignore these applicants. It forced the industry to look at people as more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. Pulling back on these sub-goals now, it feels like we're going backwards. It's that classic thing where you make it more efficient for the system, but a lot less equitable for real people. And those are usually the ones who already had the toughest hill to climb. And here's where things kind of go from theoretical to absolutely pressing. Look at the market right now. Home prices are up over 40% since 2020. The 30-year fixed mortgage rate is hanging above 6%. And, well, nobody's pretending affordability is getting better. If anything, it's the opposite. I mean, think of those previous episodes we did about affordability cliffs and regional market standstills. It's not just the rates, it's a systemic lack of access. There's solid evidence from sources like the Urban Institute and Congressional Budget Office that strong GSE goals have helped lower costs and open the credit box, especially for buyers who would otherwise be sidelined. They're not just abstract metrics. According to the CBO, about 37,000 more mortgages every year are possible because of these policy levers. And in 2025, that's probably close to 750,000 home buyers using GSE-backed loans for goal-eligible purchases. If you roll back these standards, you're not just shifting numbers on some spreadsheet, you're actually closing the door for families looking to build wealth, maybe for the first time in their family's history. The broader question is, what happens if these changes stick? Do we see an even bigger affordability divide? And will public feedback even matter? Or is this already a done deal behind closed doors? Right now, the FHFA is taking comments. So hey, if you've got opinions, this is the moment to speak up. And for investors or home buyers, I'd say, watch this space closely. Policy decisions like this have a funny way of showing up months down the road in your appraisal values, in who gets approved for loans, and even in which neighborhoods get left behind. All right, that's about all the time we've got today. Thanks for listening and staying informed, even when the headlines get a little policy wonky, let's say. We'll keep tracking this, and I'll be here to break it down for you in plain language next time on the Nadlan Forum Podcast Daily.